Okay, boss. In the last class, we've seen about the schema, what does it form in the backend. So pretty much when you say you're building a data warehousing applications, you'll understand the reporting requirements, understand where the data is available. Before you extract it, you design your data models in BW bus. When you say designing, as per the extended star schema, you start designing where the keyword should be placed, where the characteristic should be placed, and you start designing your schema, and then start loading your master data or transaction data to the targets, and then start doing reporting. So that's it. Okay. So when you go about building any of these structures, whether it is master data or cube or DSO, whatever it is, it's always based on what? Info objects. Always based on info objects. And once the info object is created, it can be reused in n number of structures. Clear on this? Yeah. So now we already seen that we have got different types of info objects: characteristics, key figure, unit, time, and then what? Technical characteristics. Simple. Whenever I say characteristic, on which you cannot perform aggregation function would become a characteristic, and any field on which you can perform aggregation function, that becomes a key figure. Okay. So now we're going to look at creating info objects of type characteristic, unit, key figure, time, and all this. But can we create time characteristic bus? No. Can we create technical characteristics? No. We can, in these two cases, we can only use the objects what is delivered by SAP. Okay, good. Now let's get in. So I know we'll have to create info area, then we create what? Catalogs, then go about creating info. So I'm just going to create info area now. So in RSA1, what is menu here? Info provider menu. Just right click on the top, say create info area. So, yeah. I'm just creating it for some company. Let's say I'm implementing a warehouse for this company. Again, under this can I have sub info areas again. Yeah. Info area again. So let's say sales, tell is to sales. So this will be just like a folder for us. Yeah. Again, I want again one more area saying what? Kelly's to finance. So like this, you can go about creating info area to n number of levels. So whenever you create info area, it always takes technical name and description. And once it is created, you cannot change the technical name. It's only description can be changed. Right. Now once this is available, I want to like to create my info object catalogs. So how do you do this? You get to the info objects menu. So you should find your info area here already. Yeah. So I would like to create catalogs under the sales area. So you're in the info objects menu now. Right click on this and say what? Create info object catalog. Say Z Kelly's to care and then say sales. Sales Kelly's to what's a care. So what type of catalog do I want it here? Care. So since the version of the object is new, just activate. Because I can only use object if it is in which version was active. Done. Back. Next, I want one more catalog for key figure. Z C key sales. List and then say any description you can give. See, in description you can use any special characters, any space. Okay, but technical name doesn't allow you to use any of this except underscore. That too not in the beginning. Okay. So this time I want what? Key figure. This is about creating catalogs. Now once the catalogs are ready, can I start? Now this symbol tells you, this is representing catalog for key figure, this is representing characteristics. Once the catalogs are ready, we can start creating info objects. Now I'm concentrating on creating a characteristic info objects now. Okay, I want a characteristic about customer. Okay, and which can hold values like C100 or C200 or C300 like this. So this is what info object I want. So I want, when I say info object, it's a column of a structure. Yeah. So I want an info object like customer which can hold values like this. Yeah. So how do you create this? So you get into what? Characteristic catalog. Right click on this and say what? Create info object. So it does bring in screen dialog box where it says what? Create characteristic and the characteristic technical name. Yeah. So I would try to prefix it. So the object what I'm creating now, it's a customized object. So I try to prefix with Z, next character C indicating it's a character, and then something CNO something. Yeah, it's a customer number. Yeah. Then it does take you to screen where you can start defining the properties of the object. This is your technical name of the object. This is a description of your object, and this is again short description, not mandatory. Okay. Then you get into different tabs where you start defining the properties of this object. Yeah. Now look at this. So as it is, it's a characteristic info object. Now we'll go by property now. There is a property called data type. Yeah. So you'll have 4 different data types for characteristics. One is char, numc, dats, or teams. You would go with char when you want what? Alphanumeric data, and you would go with numc when you want only numerics treated as characters, and dats for date, and then teams for times. Now char, and now I wanted alphanumeric, so I just wanted it of length 4 because it was C100, C200, 4 length is fine. Okay. Then max length of the info bit is what? Look at this. What is it now? You see, in the previous versions we only had it as 60 bus. Now it moved on to 250 length. So you can have info bit of max length to 250. Previous versions we only had 60 bus. Okay. Till BA7 we had only 60. Only from 7.3 we are flexible of having 250 length here. Then the checkbox here. Now, do you want all of this characteristic to hold lowercase letters in it? If yes, then it does allow caps as well as lowercase. Suppose if you don't enable this and if you try inserting lowercase letters into it, it does fail saying no SID found for it, or cannot insert value into this object because you have not allowed lowercase, so it doesn't accept. As per SAP standard, for the main primary key characteristics like customer number, document number, metal document, you don't really allow lowercase. But in the source, if you have lowercase, what you do? While extracting in the transformation, you will convert it to uppercase and then take it to BW if required. Okay. Because if you allow lowercase for main characteristics, in the reporting you would get to see as capital M100, small m100. So it does create a confusion in the reporting front. So it does not a good practice to do that. Yeah, what is it? What is it? Camel case means? Yes, is capital. Yeah, when I say lowercase allowed, it does by default caps is allowed. If you want to explicitly allow lowercase, then you say lowercase allowed. So it does with the combination of low and high, it does accept. When you say lowercase, yeah. Then there is something called conversion routine bus. Very, very important. It's a concept is important, but you don't really take care of it. System takes care of that actually. Okay, now look at this. Now, in BW, do we have something called transformations, which takes care about transforming the data, what is coming into BW, right? Those are the transformations what we build as per the requirement, custom transformations. So what SAP has done is, apart from the normal transformations, SAP also has got some transformations performed automatically in the backend. So one of the example is alpha bus. Alpha is actually it converts the data what is coming in from the source. Now what conversion does it do? Look at this. Every conversion routine will have two functionalities. While it is inputting the value into the info bit, it does perform one functionality. Again, while it is taking the data back from the info bit back to the reporting, again it does the conversion. So one is input functionality and one is output functionality. For example, let's say I have a customer number as, let's say, of length numc of length 10 bus. But I'm just inserting only customer number say 100, but remaining 7 characters are blank. So while inserting in, what I want is, I want the left padding to be done with zeros. Again, when it comes back to reporting, I want those 7 zeros to be removed and shown as what? 101 or 100. Clear on this? So to do all this left padding with zeros and remove those left padding of zeros, alpha conversion takes care of it. What SAP has done is, they have implemented this logic as part of function model. Yeah. Normally, all SAP products are developed by using ABAP as a language. For any customizations, they write some programs or function models in the backend. So in C language, you have got something functions, where you write your reusable code as a function, right? Same way in ABAP, we'll have something called function models. So we can look at the function models in the T code SC37. Yeah? SC37 is the T code where you can have a look at the function model. We don't have to write code, at least we should understand the code what is written for this conversion. So actually the naming would be conversion underscore exit underscore alpha underscore input. You'll have a function model like this. Yeah. So there is a function. But so now how did I know this? I just know the word alpha bus, and remaining naming is fixed. Conversion underscore exit underscore alpha is will be changing, and then input. This will give you. This will implement the logic for input functionality bus. Let's see what does it do. For example, if I see, we don't have to understand the code. Let's run this code. So for example, I give input as 111, okay, and then if I so what does input do? If I just give this value, what does it do? It does do left padding with all zeros, and it takes 111 at the bottom, at the back. So it means it assumes the length of the info bit could be max 250. If you give 111, it does feed in those 257 blanks with zeros. That's how input functionality work can. But if you go with output, what it does, okay? If you want to test your output function, you will say output. If I just give all zeros and say 999, then what it does? It removes those zeros and gives you back in the report. So input function is executed while inserting the value into the info bit, and output function is executed when it takes the value from the database back to reporting this. So database pettukunetabbudu zeros padding left padding just pettukuntundi. Poi తీసుకెళ్ళేటప్పుడు zeros తీసుకెళ్తుంది. Okay. But if I work out with, say for example, if it is input with, if I just give input with something alphanumeric like say C100, it doesn't do anything. No left padding. For alphanumeric doesn't do anything. Only for data type num-c, it does do the left padding or removing those zeros. Okay. Clear on this bus? That's for decimals it doesn't do. That's for key figures.
So if I type in like 100, so why does it put zeros?
Because the values can be manipulated. Because in the database, if you don't put those left padding with zeros, it can start reading that as a number also. So they want to treat that as only string only. That's all. Okay. By default, it takes that alpha. You don't have to really worry. And there are some other conversion routines like say, which we don't use all this, but LMNOP period. You'll also have another conversion routine. What is period 7? Generally, your month will have these values. Okay, I can get to understand what does this do. PRI7, right? Now what I'll do, the functional name would be same. I'll just have to replace this word PRI7, yeah, and then say execute. So what does this do? Suppose if it just takes in input like year and month, just takes it like that. 2001 028, sorry, input, right? So I should give it as 01.2010. Yeah. It takes out the zeros and then takes in as year and month. Okay. Suppose if I go with output, so internally what it does is it stores without any slash or dot. So I'll say I've got 2010-01. So 2010-01. What it does, it takes that out, puts its dot and gives you in the reporting there. So there are conversions like this it does, and we don't have to really worry. It's all the internal conversion by the system. Okay. Then what is this output length here? 4. Why? Because when you're storing the value of length 4, even max length output could be 4 bus. But in some scenarios it could change. For example, month. To store it uses 6 characters, but when displaying it is showing with dot, right? So it becomes what? 7 characters. That's why look at this. When I change my data type to dates, input length is what? 8. In SAP, date is stored as YYYMMDD, but when you displaying, you do show with dot or slash. It becomes 10 characters. That's why look at this. Output length is what? 10 bus. Now let's say I'm going char again. Okay, what's done? And if we go with time, then what happens? Input length is 6, HH, MM, SS, but when it's showing out, length is 8, HH, colon, MM, colon, SS. So output format is different again. Okay, done. I actually wanted what? 4 length here. Okay, now this, then it forms, it will have something called what? SID table. Right? We discussed yesterday. Every table should have what? Every characteristic info bit will have SID table with this naming. Yeah? /BI is fixed. Next C in case of customized object, then 0 in case of standard object, then S, then the name of the info object. Now what is your name of the object? ZCCNO. That was your name of the object. So what should be the table name formed? /BIC/S. then ZCCNO bus. This will be the name of the SID table. And you see this table /BAC/S and ZCCNO. That's how the name of the table is formed always. But this table, see, you see it underlined. I can double click on this table to see the table definition, but the table gets created only after I activate my object, not now. Okay, bus, fine. Then there's something called transfer routine bus. Let's say like alpha, see what SAP has done is it has understood frequent requirement conversions for every customer. They've given us generalized conversions. If there is some client specific conversion requirement, then you can write your own routine here where you would be using ABAP bus. For example, simple, for some reason I have a requirement like this. Say for every customer I insert in, I need to prefix Z always. And while showing in the report, I just want to remove that Z and show or whatever it is. I want to do some customer specific conversion for, let's say, best example could be WS element. Let's say now what happens is when you're storing the WS element, you store without hyphens, like say 00, 60, 90, all this. But when you're showing WS element, they expect to see 00 hyphen, then 3 characters hyphen. They want to have that kind of formatting for it. Then you can create your own transfer routines also. But we'll see that later. But the transfer routine what you write here is global. Means what? Once I write my routine here, wherever you use this info object in n number of cubes, this routine will get affected. This routine will get affected before inserting value into the object. And you might be using this info object in 100 cubes. Wherever it is used, it does get executed. That's what I mean as global. Okay. Now next there is one more checkbox called attribute only. Now what is the importance of this checkbox? Simple. If I don't select this checkbox, it means I can use this characteristic info object as a separate characteristic, connect that to a dimension table of my cube. You understand what it is? Yesterday I showed you metal type. You could use metal type as attribute as well as a separate characteristic having a SI table connecting to dimension also. If I don't select this checkbox, I can use either way. I can use this characteristic as an attribute of another characteristic, or I can use this as a separate characteristic, have it SI table connecting to my dimension table also. Either ways can be done. But if I select this checkbox, it means it can be used only as an attribute. Now tell me, do you prefer to select or no? Generally no, because if I just leave it, I'll be able to use any way I want. Yeah? And this is nothing but person responsible who created this. Again, but normally you'll have this property field for the business content objects which is delivered by SAP as SAP. That is a standard objects given by SAP. And then there's some property content release. How do we have different versions in BW like 3.2, 3.1, 3.5, 7.7, 7.3, 7.4? We'll also have different releases in the business content also. So now when you see certain business content object, you will be able to see to which content does this belong to, which release does it belong to. Okay. Okay, boss. And we'll get to this. There's something called documents what you can maintain in BW. If you want to use the values of this info object into documents, we'll see that later. That is what then we enable this characteristic as what? Document. Let's say you want to maintain some very big document information, so like text like information about a customer saying he is not a regular customer, and you want to maintain some comments of a customer. Okay. In this comments, you want to use the values of this info object in between, saying the sales of the month value from 0 cal month is really down because of this because of the performance of customer value of customer info object. So you want to formulate some text like string or comments based on the value of info objects. You go about using characteristic as document attribute. We'll see that later. Okay. And constant, say if you don't fill any while loading, if you don't fill any value, you want to fix something value. It keeps taking this value if you give something, but we don't use that. And this will be date and time when this object has been created. Now clear on this now? Done. Next.
So
it will be like this. Okay. Now tell me what you want.
So we don't take off attribute only, then we can use an attribute and text.
No, we can use it as attribute of another characteristic, or we can use it as a separate characteristic and connect that SI table to a cube, or you can use that as a characteristic in my cube. If you select this, you will not be able to use that as a characteristic in my cube. If you deselect, I can use it as attribute or as a characteristic in the cube also. Okay, boss? Done. Next, what I want to do is now, say this is a characteristic info object, right? Every characteristic info object can have 3 types of master data bus. Every characteristic can have its own attribute table, text table, hierarchy table. Okay. Now this is where you indicate whether you want it or not. So go to the master data text tab, master data text tab, the checkbox here with master data. enabling this checkbox indicating that you would like to maintain attribute table for customer number. I don't want now. Okay. And enabling this checkbox indicates that you want to maintain text table for customer. I don't want text table also. Now, in the hierarchy tab, you have a checkbox with hierarchies where you indicate you would like, do you want to maintain hierarchies? You will enable this. I don't want now. As of now, I don't want anything. Now look at this. If I say I want to maintain, observe these tabs here. Okay. When I say I want to maintain attribute table for customer number, it does bring in another tab. What is tab here? Attributes. Where it does ask me what attributes you want. You said you wanted attribute table for customer. What are the infobits which should act as attributes? That's where you specify in this attributes tab. Okay. Fine. Then there's a tab called what is compounding tab. What does this do is compounding attribute. When I say compounding attribute, for example, if I create customer master database, what is the primary key? Customer number is a primary key and all others are non-key columns. But I have a different scenario like this. Say I would like to create mat plant. I would like to create a master data for mat plant, but where metal and plant together should be primary key in my attribute table. I want both metal number and plant number together should act as a composite key. That's what two primary keys I want. Then what I'll do, while creating metal characteristic, I'll use plant as the superior object. Then when I see my attribute table, you will see both metal number and plant together as primary key. That is compounding attribute. So once you declare as compounding, wherever my metal number goes, your plant will be following it. Because your metal doesn't have a value without a plant value. Because when do you do this scenarios? Let's say I've got two plants, P1, P2. And let's say in P1 I've got three metal set, M1, M2, M3. And P2 also I've got M1, M2, M3 bus. If I don't consider plant and if I load the 6 metals to my master data, how many metals do you see? 3. Because even if I load M6 metals, since there are combination duplicates, it goes and overwrites. You are left out with what? M1, M2, M3. Doesn't make sense. But value of M1 is different. Value of M1 with plant P1 is different, and with plant P2 is different. Then what you do? I need to model a master data where two columns are acting as primary key. That is where we use compounding attributes. So when I am creating my metal characteristic, I will use plant here. Then what happens? For metal, plant becomes the compounding attribute. Then in the master it starts maintaining attributes with respect to M1, P1 is different attributes. For M1, P2 different attribute set. You can also use. You can also use that. Excellent. That is where we generally use when you have it from different sources. For example, say I'm basically in PW consolidate data from different source systems, right? So let's say for North America they've got data in Oracle. For say Asia Pacific they've got data in R3 bus, ECC product. When they have ECC will go to customer master on the, I've got customer master in Oracle also. I need to get both these two and integrate into what? BW bus. Let's say the customer series in ECC and the customer number series in Oracle is same. When I load ECC first and then Oracle data first, will they go and overwrite? Because the numbers are same. But actually what I mean is what customer numbers from ECC is different from customer number from Oracle bus. Then what I'll do, I'll say, look at this. The checkbox. If I select this master data locally for source, then what does it become? It does bring in an info bit called what? Zero source system as compounding attribute. Then in that case, what happens? Customer is component with source system. So if you look at attribute table, you'll have customer number and source system together as primary key. Now C1 from ECC is different. C1 from Oracle would be differently stored. From now in the reporting, wherever you use this customer, it will be showing value like say C1 ECC, C1 Oracle and Jupyter onto the reporting. It means the compounding values will be concatenated. Okay, like say customer number is C1, your source system is ECC. In the reporting, you would see it as concatenated value C1 ECC and Ganbis onto it. It will be submitted with a hyphen, say C1 / ECC and Ganbis and C1 / Oracle and Ganbis. You can set it like that. That is where generally we can also use compounding attributes also. But we'll see that using, but what is what, okay.
Can you have two components?
And yeah, there is no limit. See, simple. You should not ask me. There are a lot of white boxes. Then you can go about specifying n number of objects. No issues. Then there is a tab called Bex boss. Actually, in this tab, you control all the properties of the info bit, which will have effect at the reporting level. For example, see, you'll have the same properties in the reporting as well as in here also. Suppose if I set some property, let's say now I'll say Bex description. I'm saying whenever I use customer number in the report, it has to show me long description. If I set this property, do you have text table maintained with short, medium and long? Reporting the long jupil, I can set it as long. If I do setting here, in any report, wherever we using this customer number object, it will be showing always what? Long description. I didn't want that. Let's say I have 5 reports. In one report I wanted to show short, in one report I wanted to show long. Then it will control properties at front end, reporting level. If you do control properties here, it will affect every query wherever this customer number object is used. So the Bex tab would have all the properties relevant affecting my front end reports. But this will affect any property set here would affect all the properties, all the queries used wherever this object is used. Yeah. Then there is something called Bex map. Okay. Like you heard about Excel CS, anyone? Where you can have more of world, you can bring in some maps and represent your data in a maps bus. Like Google Maps, atla maps తీసుకురావచ్చు. If you want to enable InfoOptics to bring in maps like this in BW, we will be using this Bex map. Through using Bex map, we will be setting the InfoOptic as what geo characteristic InfoOptic. Then they start storing information like .shp, shape files అంటే world map ఎలా ఉందో అట్లా వేసి ఎక్కడి నుంచి ఎక్కడికి మెజర్మెంట్ ఇండియాను ఎక్కడి నుంచి ఎక్కడికి మెజర్మెంట్ చైనా అని ఆ క్యాలిక్యులేషన్స్ అన్ని ఆ ఫైల్స్లో ఉంటాయి. We upload those files. As soon as I say static geo, it does ask me to what? Upload shy files. Now when I say click on this button, it will ask me what? I need to have those, the world map files and the SHX files, all those to implement this. Yeah, we have set of files, we will do that exercise. Okay. But just there is an option called Bex map through which you can enable the InfoOptic as geo characteristic object, where you will have to upload those shape files and SHX files or map files, and then in the reporting you can bring out those map and represent your measures or represent your key figures also. So with that you can enable Bex map also. So this is like, and one more thing, the check, very very important, the checkbox called authorization relevant here. When do we use this? And means like, say we have an InfoOptic. Let's say in the reporting, let's say I have InfoOptic called plant. Now in the reporting, when let's say I have designed one report for plant overview report. Okay. Let's say this report is designed for all the plant managers. Let's say I've got 2 plants, P1 and P2. So there is a manager for P1, there is a manager for P2. When manager of P1 runs this report, he must see data only for P1. When manager for P2 runs in, he should see data only for P2. So then we have a concept called authorizations, where we'll have a concept called variables with authorization processing type. So when you run the query, you'll have a prompt or a variable which takes in the value automatically based on the authorizations of the user. So if you want to enable the InfoOptic like that, which can take in the value with authorizations, you should enable this InfoOptic as what? Authorization relevant. So when you enable this InfoOptic as authorization relevant, then you can start providing security or authorizations based on the values of this InfoOptic. Let's say for plant, I'll enable this checkbox so that in the front end you can control row level security. Like in BU, how do you do row level security? We can do that. Okay, boss. But how we do, I'll take it to that. But this is what you can have the properties. Okay. I've just touched a lot of stuff on this, but I don't want attribute table also, boss, for now. I just want just the characteristic. Okay. And then I left out the first property. What is this? Data element. Okay. Now this is a normal data dictionary concept. What does data element mean? Look at this. Every data element will have technical properties and semantic properties of the object. Now when I say technical properties, it is data type and length. You have declared data type and length here. Okay. As what? Char and for. And what semantic property? Nothing but description. What is the description here? Customer number. Okay. So with these technical properties of your object and semantic properties of the object, it defines one data element for us. Now what is the purpose of the data element? I'll show you now. Look at this. Let me activate that object. What is the data you said? Char, and what is the length was? 4. Now double click on this date. You can double click on this to see the data element definition. This data element is a definition defined with the domain. What is the technical properties here? Char and what? You can double click on the domain. Yeah, you get inside to see detailed was. Data type is what? Char. What is the length here? 4. And does it have a conversion here? Alpha. And you can also get into value range, or you can see, don't worry about value, you can see what? Description here. So what is the purpose of this is? I'll come back to that. Now when the characteristic is created, activated, now we should have the SI table formed. What columns should my SI table have? As per the schema in the we will learn, any columns should have SI table? 2 columns, right? One is the characteristic column and the SID column. So get inside, double click on this. Now you get to see the table. Yeah. So do you see customer number column and what? SID column. So now I'm showing the importance of the data element. I told you when you are using info in the tables, you are using structure of it. Structure means you got to know the length and data type. Does your data element know that? Does your data element know the structure, data type, length and description, all this? Now look at this. Now for this field, this char, length, for and description are defined with this. What is here? What is the data element? This is the same one which is having char, for and this. So that data element has brought in the definition into that column. Wherever my infobix are used into those tables in the backend, I need to have the definition of those column, length, data type in the length. So the data element is used to define those properties of the column in the backend table. When I activate the infobix, it formulates the data element. This data element will be used in the backend to formulate the properties of that particular column in a table. Okay, what's done? And as it is, the SID table would be blank. So this is how you create a characteristic infobix. Done? Okay. Next, I am showing you how do we create a key figure. Let's say I want a key figure. Say I want to say what number of employees, which will have values like say I want a key figure which hold number of employees, which can hold values like 1200 and 1100. Can you ever have 1200.5? 1200 ante, right? It is always a whole number, without any decimals. So how do I create this keyword? Now select the keyword catalog, right click and say what? Create infobix. Now how do you create this? Let's say ZK.
Sometimes you have like full-time and part-time employees. That's when
That will be differentiating on the employee type, but that doesn't come like 0.5 and rather. FT comes as 0.5, but you can never get employee count as that. Okay. I'll say number of employees. Say number of employees. Now this is a key figure. Okay. Now let's say this is a key figure bus. Technical name of the key figure and descriptions, and the version is new because we have not yet been activated even first time. So that's why it says inactive, not executable. It is inactive, so cannot be used. So we'll have to activate it now. So in the type of key figure, you'll have what? Amount, quantity, number, integer, date and times. Now when you say amount, when you say type as amount, it will be numeric value with decimals and should be associated with some currency. Amount antane number with decimal associated with some currency. Now when I say quantity, it will be again number with decimal associated with the unit of measure. Now when I say number, it's like pure, it's a numeric value with the decimals, not associated with any currency or unit. Like say my percentage, sales tax percentage, say 12.36. I have a number with decimals, but there is no unit of measure or no currency for it. Those kind of keywords we go with what? Number. If you want to have a whole number without any decimals, then you go to what? Integer. Then you have option as what? Date. YYMMDD. Now you have option called time. Now with this you should ask me a doubt. For date you have seen two options now. While creating characteristic, I've got a field date type called dates. While creating keyword also I've got date type as date. Yes or no? When to use what? Answer the question. While I'm creating my characteristic in format, I've got date type as dates. And while creating keyword also I've got keyword date type as what? Date. Now let's say in the source or in ECC or in some source system, you have identified a column to be extracted to BW, and that column is of type date. Now how do I decide whether that date should be a characteristic or that date should be a key figure? And there is a confusion because both are possible. So simple. If I am going to use this date in calculating number of days, then that will be key figure. If I am going to use this date for analysis, say on this day how many transactions were done, on this day how much was my revenue, then I will be going it for characteristic. Simple, right? Same if you are using the time. Let's say you have time field. Again, time, two options. If you want to calculate number of hours between those times, then it will be key figure. If you want to analyze those time-based analysis I want to do, then it will be what? Characteristic. If you want to use those date or time into calculations, it will be key figure. If you want to use that as part of analysis, then that will be characteristic. Okay. Yeah. Next, I got some data type called what? Now. So you choose a type what you want, amount. and then you can choose a data type here. Two things, cur and float. So cur will only have 2 decimals, and when you want a value with 16 decimal positions, then you can say what? Float. And now for example, say I'll say cur, okay, only less decimals, and then what? What is it? Since you said keyword is of type amount, it has to be associated with what? Some currency. Now I can say, when do you go for fixed currency? If all the values in the keyword are measured with same currency, then you give it. Now when I say F4, it is showing me some list of currencies here. Normally the SAP call this value help. Okay, when I do this, it is just showing me all the possible values it can have. It's all what? List of currencies here. Now where is this list of currencies coming from? I never specified it, right? Yeah. So what it does is, you'll have T code called SC11. SC11 where you can see entire data dictionary. And SAP database can be analyzed from this. Okay. So will it have BW is an application? Will it have some repository tables in the backend? Yes. So there is a table called T-cur-C. Okay. There is a table called T-cur-C. This is a standard table by SAP, which will have list of currencies in it. Okay. Display, contents, and F8. Now look at this. I see list of all the currencies here. And how many I am getting to see here? 209. If I just observe it, how many are there? Was 209. If I go here, how many I am getting to see here? Should it count? 20. So all the list from the T-cur-C table is being displayed. From there you can select from currency. Now the question is, today morning I have installed my system, this one, new one. If it is newly installed, how did I get those currencies? If I newly buy the software and get installed, how do I get the currencies in the T-cur table? If it is IDES version, you will have it. But if it is real productive system, all the tables will be blank. How did I get those currencies in it? You should get the doubt, yeah. So we'll deal that later. But there is a point how to get those currencies into system also. Okay. Generally, how do they get that is hint, but we'll go. I don't know, our topic was Sundara. Now we go to source systems here. So this is where you'll have all the connections. Okay. When you expand on there's something. What is here? SAP connection. This is a connection which is connecting my ECC product and BW bus. Normally for my business, all the transaction system would be my ECC. Okay. SAP R3, okay, or let's say APO, depending on the system. Yeah, actually, then what they do when they're doing their business, they'll create all their currencies in the source as per the business requirement. Then what you do? You right click on the R3 connection, say what transfer. What is it? Global settings. Now, what do you want to transfer the global settings? What currencies? And you want to simulate or rebuild the tables. So rebuild tables and execute. Then what happens? It will bring all the current. Even in ECC, you will have the same table T-cur-C. All the currencies from T-cur-C table in the ECC will be replicated to what? T-cur-C table in BW. That's how the currencies is brought into this. Suppose my question is, what about, let's say my customer does not use ECC, is using some other non-SAP database. Then how do I get that? Okay. Then what it is, we'll have different ways of, what we do generally is, you know about ODS, right? Like Cube, ODS is also one target bus. By using some DB connect text, we'll create a source system connection to Oracle database. Do normal extraction of info package, DTP, transformation, and bring all the currencies into one ODS bus. Then we'll write some program which will take all the currencies from this ODS into T-cur-C table. If it is from R3, I can just use this option. This is also actually a program. Right click, transfer global settings, it is actually a program here. If you go here, you can know the program name. Internally, it is actually running some program bus. Okay. Same thing. What we can do is, for non-SAP, look at there's some deep. Let's say I've got in HANA database, or let's say I've got in Oracle database. I'll create a source system to connect my Oracle database to my BW. Then I'll create my ODS. I'll create a data source on the table of Oracle. Create a data transformations, info package, DTP, and extract all the currencies into one ODS bus. ODS is nothing but like a table. Then I'll write a program, ABAP program, which will read all the data from this ODS table and put into T-cur-C table. Why I am discussing this? I am not giving you because I want to show that I know this. This is what you will have to raise a scenario. If they ask you what scenario did you work in, if there is any complex scenario work done, you have to take the thought to that level. Thought level, that's what I am looking at. Forget about whether you do it or not. You should know that there is a possibility how you can do that. Yeah. And if you want a fixed currency, you can specify. Or if you say it's not fixed currency, where if I want to have a requirement like say each value could be of different currencies, then what do you do? you will start referencing it to what? Some unit characteristic like say 0. I can use 0 currency here. I can use a unit characteristic like this. Because I'd say each value could be of different unit of measures. This time I don't want that. Okay, no, okay. Let me just activate, then I will show you one. Yeah. How do you observe how much length? Here we don't have control on how much length comes in or what is the decimal numbers. Okay. When you activate internally, it does create data element even for key figure also, because wherever the keywords are used, data element will go into the table to define the definition of that column. ప్రతి ఇన్ఫార్మేటిక్ డేటా ఎలిమెంట్ ఫామ్ అవుతూ ఉంటుంది. ఈ ఎప్పుడైతే ఇన్ఫార్మేటిక్ నువ్వు టేబుల్ వాడుతుంటావో ఆ డేటా ఎలిమెంట్ వెళ్ళిపోయి ఆ కాలం ప్రాపర్టీస్ ఇస్తూ ఉంటుంది. Like I can go to additional properties. There's something option called, what is this here? Data element. Okay. Now double click on this data element. You can see what is the data type here? Curve. What is the length here? 17. What is the decimals here? 2. Okay, boss. Suppose if I change this to float now, yeah, and say activate. Go to data element now. Now what is this? Data type is float. What is the length? 16. And how many decimals do you have now? 16. This is how where you can understand how much is the length it is formulating in the backend. But as it is, I am now defining number of employees. So now tell me what should be my type. What should be the type of keyword for number of employees?
Integer.
Integer. So when you say integer, automatically the currency reference has been removed out. Integer or number are nowhere associated with the amount or units. Yeah. Say suppose I want to go with unit. Again, I can go with fixed unit or referencing to unit characteristic also, where if the values are of different measures. Yeah. Now when I go with unit measures, again when I say F4 or value help, it does show me list of units which are supported in SAP. So I cannot go like so now I want to go with say block BLK. It might throw error saying it says what? It does not say it doesn't have the value in 0 unit. So means what? There are some units which are supported, only those can be used. Okay. F4 it does show me all the units what has been possible, bag, liters, kgs, bags, so whatever it is. Yeah. Now where is this all the units coming from? For this again there will be another table was here. T006 is a table to hold all the units in it. Yeah. See how many are there in this table? I mean 266. So T006 is a table which will have all the units which are supported in SAP. If I want to bring in new entry, new unit, I'll have to make an entry into this table, only then that will be allowed into my units. Let's say I want to use a unit like block. My own business has some requirement. I need to make an entry of that unit into this table, only then I'll be able to use E here. Okay. So I get to see 266 here. Yeah. So that's how you can specify. Or you can go, if it is each value could be of different measures, then I would go with what? 0 unit like this. Spelling. Okay, was done. Yeah. But this time I want to go with, now when you say quan, activate, observe the data element, what it forms. So data type is quan and then length is 17 and what is the decimals? 3. So like this, when you're practicing in the lab, try to go with every data type, every type, and then keep activating, keep observing the data element. So you should have an understanding saying, if I choose this type, for example, and what will be data element. Now for example, I'm going with integer first. Yeah? Activate. Now what is the data element form? Int 4 and what is the length here? 10. So does it have any decimals here? No, it's all whole number. Clear? Atla. You should start analyzing that. A property, A type bedte, what is in internal data element form? You should have that grip on that. Okay. Clear on this bus? Yeah. Next, there is a property called aggregation bus. Very, 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 very important. This is where BW becomes complex. Okay. Now look at this. There are two properties here: aggregation and exception aggregation bus. This aggregation property will be used or will be in effect when you're loading data into your BW bus. For example, I'm bringing amount. Can I have duplicate transactions? Same customer can buy same metal bus? Yes. Generally what I told you, cube is additive, right? It aggregates the data bus. Suppose if you're trying to load multiple records with same characteristic value, see, let's say cube has got only 2 characteristics bus, customer, metal bus. If I load multiple records with same characteristics, C1, M1, basically it will be grouping those records and takes into queue. If both records are of same request, it will aggregate them and takes it into the queue bus. So let's say I have got 2 records, C1, M1, M1, revenue 1000, 2000 bus. If I need to group these records and take into cube, C1, what should it take? C1, M1, what it will take? M1, but revenue is 1000 through 2000, what should I take? Should I take 3000 or not? or max value 2000 or min value, or what should I take? Aggregation behavior while loading into cube is controlled by this property called aggregation. Now if I say sum, then what will happen, boss? Then what will happen? It will be aggregating the values, boss. Okay. So this is aggregation behavior while loading data into the cube. And then there is something called what? Exception aggregation, boss. This will be controlled while you are reading the key figures from cube to reporting. For example, if I say select customer number and revenue from cube, when you say revenue key figure with overlap function multidimensional, you must give aggregation function. You should say select customer sum of revenue from the cube. Okay, boss. Then what happens? What it does? And group by customer you would say. Then what? It is aggregating the value sum up. If you want to sum, then what will say? What? Summation, boss. I don't want sum. I want to pick the latest value, first value, max value, min value. You can control in different, or I want to get the count of values, count distinct I want, average I want. Different requirement of aggregation functions. If those are controlled by this except aggregation. This segregation will get affected when you are running the queries, except aggregation, and this is controlled while loading into cube. I'll show that while loading into cube how it happens. Clear? Okay. And we'll come to this later. Okay, later. Don't worry. Okay. Now let me say, for example, I'll say last value. Last value means latest value. Okay. Now let's say I have two records. I've got one record with say revenue 1000, another record with says 2000. So now if I say pick latest value, what is the value? So it is say now I've got record with 2000, another record with 1000. Then what is the latest value? How are you treating the record in the bottom is the latest one? Second time so how can you guarantee that the transaction what I am giving as second is the latest one? You cannot guarantee it. So there should be some criteria to which I identify. Say I will say cal day. So based on the date, find out the latest value. So that is what aggregation reference characteristic was. When you want to perform an aggregation like last value, first value, based on which characteristic I need to perform that. We'll see that later. Don't worry now. I'll say summation. Take that out. Okay. Next additional prop. We'll come back. See when you go with non-cumulation, this comes in. We'll see that later. And Atlante say, for example. In BW, I want a keyword called stock, okay, but my source is not giving the stock value directly. Bus. In the reporting, I want stock bus. So in the cube, I maintained a keyword called stock. But when I looked at my source, there is no one who is giving me stock. They are giving me two things: inflow, outflow. Either giving inflow stock, outflow stock. But based on these two, I can determine stock. Saying what? I should keep on adding up inflow. I should keep on deducting my outflow. That will be what? My stock. Then I'll say. I want this key figure, not getting data directly, okay. It's a non-cumulative with what? In and outflow. So it will give key figure 1 here, key figure 1, and then what is it? You give key figure 2 here. So what are the value which comes from key figure 1 will be added to the stock, and what are the value which comes from key figure 2 will be deducted from the stock. You getting this? So if you're not getting the value directly, then only we use this. Now, not now, okay. Okay, then additional properties. So these properties are controlled at the best. Simple. What is this? Number of decimal places. You want 4. So in every report wherever this key is used, it will be showing what? 4 decimals. But if you want to control this, you'll have same properties in the front end. That will affect only one query. This will affect all the queries wherever it is used. Yeah? And whether you want to display, what is the next scaling factor? Let's say you want to show in only lakhs. Instead of big number, let's say it's in crores. Instead of showing a big number, I want to show only the number of lakhs. Say 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs or something. Then I can do scaling of the values. Scaling at the scaling factors I can do. But if I affect here, it will affect all the reports. Again, I'll have property in the reporting which will have effect to only one report alone again. And description what it showed, long description or short in the reporting. Yeah. Then what is checkbox here? Attribute only. If I enable the checkbox, what happens? This keyword can be only used as attribute of another characteristic. If I deselect, I can use this as an attribute or keyword inside my cube also. So where does I told you keyword can take two places, either as an attribute or either as a inside my fact table. So if I deselect, I can either use inside a fact table or as my attribute in the master data also. Okay. Person decimal content is all fine, and the date and time when the person is activated it. Okay. I am all okay, set up, and then I want it as integer, it's active. Okay, boss, clear? You can do this way. suppose I have a requirement like this, then I want a keyword like grass amount, let's say. But where each value could be in what INR, and or let's say pakkan column it for normal they write it like this, right? 1000
Sir, recording one hour.